right, are we live?
Hello?
I think we are. All right, what's up, everybody? Real Extermination Radio. I'm here with Doomkid.
Hello, how's it going?
Good, man. All right, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about. And first of all, I wanted to say I'm really glad to have you here because I consider you to be like one of the coolest people on Doomworld. I think you're really chill, and you have a very pragmatic way of looking at things, and I'm really excited to talk to you. And I'm also really happy to have a fellow flat earther on the show.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, the evidence is overwhelming. I mean,
yeah.
Come on, let's be real.
I mean, the scientists, they're pushing this money, and they need to push this stupid agenda that the Earth is round, which is bullshit. We all know the Earth is flat. I mean, we can see that the Earth is flat, and all these scientists are just trying to get all this science money by pushing this agenda and teaching in schools that the Earth is flat, but it's obviously a disc. I mean, and it's obviously made of sectors.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, if you look at Doom Builder, I mean, it should become clear that there's only an X and Y axis. The Z axis is a myth. Let's be real here. Let's be real about this. This is a myth perpetuated to make money. They don't care about the facts. They just want that cash. And I mean, like I've said before, I know because the Earth is flat, I just throw cash at scientists knowing that Earth is flat. I mean, that's just the way it works. I mean, if Earth was round, then I wouldn't have any reason to be. There'd be no reason for them to try and dupe me. But they want to convince us Earth is round, so we'll keep throwing cash at them. And their ploy is working. Damn it.
Have you read like the actual like theories and stuff? Because I was watching when I found out about it. I posted a thread on Doomworld and it got held like right away. But I found like this documentary. It was like 30 minutes long, and it was it seemed like it looked like a recording of like a VHS tape, like from like the 80s or the 70s or something. And they had like a lot of scientists who actually like seemed very serious. Like it didn't seem like a troll attempt at all on this, because I believe that it was actually made in like the 80s or the 90s or whatever. And these scientists had like all these like almost ridiculous ways of explaining it, and some of them like you could kind of follow them for a little bit. Like this one guy said specifically that he was answering to the claim that we've sent spaceships to the moon and we can see that the Earth is round, and his answer to that was that well, we know we're all affected by gravity, right? But who's to say that light is not affected by gravity? So what happens is when you go up into space and you look down at the Earth and you take photos, the light is bending around the disk of the Earth, and that's causing to project an image that the Earth is round, even though it's very obviously flat.
I don't understand their obsession with like making up these weird sort of theories to just shoehorn in this Earth being flat idea, because like it's funny. I didn't understand it for ages. I watched a bunch of this stuff. Like I watched some, I read some of the people trying to claim that Earth was flat, and I've never put any stock in it, because like we've got photographs from space, and you can go up high enough in certain altitudes and actually see a degree of curvature on the horizon. And there's the whole light bending thing, and Christopher Columbus, when he tried to go around the Earth, he didn't actually go around. He just went in a circle on a disc. I mean, they make up some crazy shit to support their theory. And I don't think that this applies to all of them, honestly, but I know some of them are trying to basically bend it because apparently, I mean, I'm saying this from what I've read. There's stuff in the Bible, or not even just the Bible. I don't want to go against Christians or anything here,
mm-hmm.
but in a bunch of religious documents referencing the Earth as being flat. So they're trying to like bend research and bend reality to make it so that that's true, and like, or rather to convince people that that's true. And it's so funny to me how when someone has an agenda, they are willing to bend and skew perspective so much to get things to fit that agenda. It's like, well, I don't know. Like, I guess someone somewhere along the way has some stake in this, but I mean, for the most of the people following it, it's like just nodding your empty fucking head to nonsense. What is this? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't know what it is. I'm not sure how people get caught onto this. Maybe they're just bored. I don't know. But I've heard some other things like the way they explain like nobody what they say is nobody has seen the edge of the Earth. It is a disk, but there's no way to get to it because the Earth is, if it's a flat disk, it has a gravitational pull. So like if you go out to the border, which is, by the way, the border is completely surrounded by Antarctica. Antarctica is not an island like you see on the globe. It's like this huge icy
I've heard that.
edges that cover the outside. And what happens is if you get to Antarctica and you try to go straight across it, what's happening is the gravitational pull like kind of like guides you in kind of like a loop. So you go in like this like U shape and back towards the coast again. So no matter how far you go straight, the gravitational pull is so subtle you don't really feel it. But if you feel like you're going straight, you're really not. You're just going back towards where you came from. And that's
so it's like a subtle version of what happens in those games when you get to the border area. You know, you just hit that invisible wall. It's like a subtle, soft version of that. You know, you just can't get to the border. It's just not possible. Don't even try.
Yeah, or it's like Pac-Man, where you just go to one side and you just appear on the other.
Yeah, you fucking wrap around the other side. Oh fuck! It's funny. It's funny the theories and ideas they come up with to support this bogus. I find it hilarious.
And I understand you're from Australia, right? I'm from the United States. Or were you always from Australia, or did you move?
Well,
there?
I was born in Florida and I grew up there, but in like my mid-teens, I came here with the family, and I'm glad to be here. Honestly, truth be told, the biggest negative effect is higher paying in a deathmatch server. I'm not even kidding. Aside from that, things have been pretty much better. Like my income for doing the same job is higher.
Oh wow!
And the rent is higher as well. But like the thing is, your income being higher actually negates things costing more. And you know, the healthcare is better here. I mean, you know, people are going to say, "Oh, all these ridiculous lefty pinko commie arguments," but really, I mean, the standard of living definitely seems to be higher here in general. And I would love to visit the U.S. I visited, you know, a couple of years ago, but I definitely have no strong urge to move back anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm pretty okay with my job. I'm pretty happy, but I also feel very lucky to have it because I have a lot of friends who are struggling. Like I have a lot of friends who are like waitresses and waiters, and they work in like fast food and stuff. And I know there's so much talk about like creating jobs. We have to create more jobs, and the weird thing is that I don't see any shortage of jobs where I live. The problem is that all the jobs don't pay you shit, and there's no and especially considering the amount of work you have to put into it. It's just. I mean, I don't know.
I think you're making a great point because the way I see it, and you know, again, I'm ready to be called a lefty pinko, but I think that anyone who's working 40 hours a week, if that income you're getting from that isn't enough to pay rent on a basic place and buy basic groceries to feed yourself and potentially like another person or two living with you, I don't know. It's a sign that something is very, very deeply messed up on a core level. And then, you know, the argument you get when you say that is, well, we'll raise minimum wage. And people say, oh, well, that just encourages outsourcing. And I'm like, look, outsourcing is going to happen either way. The fact of the matter is, if you want your labor force to be competent and enjoy doing their work and do a good job, you need to pay them enough to like eat a fucking bag of peanuts at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
The idea, and as well as that, like a lot of industries are heading towards automation anyway. So the outsourcing argument is going to be moot. I mean, it already is moot, and it's becoming more moot as it goes. Like the jobs that are being automated, you know, that has nothing to do with outsourcing. That's just going to be gone. Like where there used to be 100 staff, you're going to have one guy who occasionally like upgrades machines that are doing this work. Like the most basic and primitive example is probably like automated checkouts at grocery stores and shit. But I mean, that's just the beginning of a trend that we're heading towards. And I mean, there's really no denying it. The way that it's headed, that's just where we're going. That automation is going to take over. So with that said, with the jobs that remain, the sort of menial jobs that still can't be automated. Like for what I do, for example, has certain specific things about it that can't be automated, just like the face-to-face interaction and stuff. And as a result, I'm living here and I'm making enough money to live. I know I'm not living like a king, but I'm comfortable. And just the fact that someone in America in the same position as me, going home to like a piece of shit flat compared to what I live in, and like having a piece of shit dinner compared to what I eat, it's just like when they have welfare in place, and welfare is necessary, by the way, in my opinion. If welfare didn't exist, I think a lot of things would be fucked. Yeah. So with welfare in place, it's like there's little. If you're only going to earn $200 a fucking week at your job, then there's no incentive to get a job. Just be a fucking welfare leech. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's the thing. It incentivizes paying a living wage for full-time work incentivizes people to get work. And this idea that it's like, oh, well, you want the big businesses to just roll out the red carpet for you and fucking give you a Lamborghini and shit. It's like, no one's saying that. But I think that it's bordering on slave labor if 40 hours a week ain't earning you a fucking living. Like, let's be realistic here. We're calling this place civilized. Well, let's take some actions to prove that it's a civilized country, that we actually have some future to look forward to. And all that's just getting the arguments against it are getting to the point where they're ridiculous. I mean, they've all been debunked and argued against, but some people are just attached to this idea that it's somehow communism or socialism to be paid a living wage. It's like, I think capitalism is great. Capitalism is what works best from what we've found. But, I mean, we still need to have some rules and regulation in place. Mainly, your labor force should be able to eat fucking dinner after they go home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've worked with when I worked in fast food, like when I was in like high school and like in college and stuff. I worked with people that were like scared to call out sick because they couldn't afford to take the day off, and they didn't. And like where I worked, they didn't offer sick time, so they were just like they would come into work and like they would throw up in the sink sometimes, and it was disgusting. This was a rare occasion, but it did happen sometimes, and it was really frightening to be around these types of people that were like they had like these medical bills and stuff they had to pay for, and they were just paying them out of pocket, and they live in a shitty house and they can barely afford to eat dinner. I mean, when I worked there, when I bought my first house, I was still working there, and I still live in the house now. But when the wages that I was making, at the time I was living with my parents. So I was just kind of living off of whatever they provided for me. And I didn't realize how hard it was to just kind of like manage all your expenses and stuff. And I lived very frugally, but I was making like almost exactly enough to pay my bills and afford to like get groceries every now and again. But I had to get them from like, I always ate generic brand, and I ate mostly rice and pasta because that was like pretty much the most calories I could get per dollar.
Sure.
And that was just how I had to live. And it does suck that people have to go through that. I don't know.
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't understand what's going through someone's mind if they say someone working full time, it's acceptable for them to have to live in that way. Like, I've got a friend. First I'll go off on this little rant. I've lived here for 8 years now. Going on 9, and I don't know. Personally, every single person I know who's low on the economic rung, like me, I've always been pretty low on the economic rungs of the ladder. They're all far less miserable here than they would be in the U.S. Like everyone I know, if you work full time, you can survive, and you can, and you don't even have to. You can occasionally go ahead and get some sausages and have a barbecue, and you can occasionally take sick leave. It's like, it's really, I think it's a first world country, so it's nice to be able to live first world standards. You know what I mean? Especially when you're putting in all that time and effort. And some people say, oh, well, it won't work in the U.S. because the population's so high. And I'm just going to call bullshit on that one. There's no evidence to suggest that that's accurate whatsoever. Like, the fact is, if your labor force can't afford to live comfortably not even just comfortably, but like could live somewhat comfortably on a full-time wage, there's no incentive to get work. And then they wonder why welfare is such an issue. It's like, maybe it's the fact that there's no fucking reason to get a job unless it's like a college degree or higher. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, it's I don't know. I've tried to reason people with this, and this isn't an impromptu discussion, but like I've gone and done the research and written giant fucking things that have probably gone now, because some of them are actually in Post-Hell and Doomworld, about why this is the case, why you can't really call yourself a first world country if your labor force isn't living first world standards. But people who already agree with me, and those who, for some reason, want to suck the cock of corporate America just refuse to listen to the idea.
Yeah. I always thought it was weird that I was working with people that like were just like really, really, really struggling, and I really hate the concept of having to have a college degree in order to get like a decent job, because when I got out of working in like fast food and got into the job that I'm working at now, I found I had a really hard time like filling out my resume, like putting stuff on there, and it was hard to. And almost like all the applications that I took and like places that were offering jobs, they said you must have this sort of level of education, and it's kind of retarded because I don't think it's kind of retarded because I don't think that you have to have a college. Like I used to watch this TV show called I forget what it's called. It was this TV show about Nurse Jackie. That's what it was called.
Okay.
Nurse Jackie is this show about a nurse who in New York City. And she works with a bunch of other nurses, of course. And there's this guy that she has to deal with who's a doctor, and he's fresh out of college. His parents paid his way through college, and he's really young. And she's about like 40 years old. He's about maybe like early 30s, late 20s, something like that. And he thinks he's hot shit because people have been like pampering him his whole life. He has all these college friends. He's a frat boy, but he's educated and he has a degree. And what happens is he like misdiagnoses patients all the time because he doesn't have the experience, because he's never worked in a place like in a hospital as busy as one in New York City. But the nurses know what's going on because they've been doing this for years and years and years. But he's the one who's getting paid more, and he's the one who's calling the shots because he has that authority as a doctor. And he's like misdiagnosing patients, and people are dying early and getting the wrong medicine and things like that. And that's fucking bullshit. And it's weird in this age of the internet that you can pretty much educate yourself on anything. I listen to like audiobooks and stuff all the time, and I learn about stuff that I've never had any like formal education in, but I don't know how to apply it if people won't hire me because I don't have a formal education for it. It's such a weird thing.
It makes sense for there to be some sort of initiation process, but I think like 4 to 6 years of life-crushing debt, learning shit that only 10% of which will ever be applied, is probably not the best way to say, okay, I'm qualified for this position.
Yeah.
I mean, in Australia, it's similar, but I mean, because we have a thing called HEX, which is if you want to go to university, instead of paying this huge bazillion-dollar debt that you'll never pay off, you do pay it off, but the thing is, it just comes out of your taxes. Your taxes go up like, I don't know, 2% or something, and it just comes out of your taxes for the next years to come until you've paid back the total. And it's a much more manageable way of dealing with it, just to have a little bit eked out of each paycheck rather than just having this giant lump of debt. And it's still the same thing of requiring 4 to 6 years at university, but it's at least a step in the right direction, having it be accessible for the average person who's just, working in. I mean, Julia is studying at university right now. She's almost done with her degree, actually. And the thing is, because we're here, she will be able to afford the debt that is racked up, because it'll just be a little drip coming out of each paycheck that goes towards paying back her thing. We call it HEX. But yeah, I think a system like that in the U.S. would be great. And then in addition to that, I think the idea that you need, some positions, that amount of time in a university is obviously necessary because there's so much material. But this idea that you need to have a university education to get all these jobs. But hey, getting that university education will put you in crippling debt for years and years to come.
Yeah.
It's yet another compounding case of not incentivizing people to get this education in the first place and then become part of the workforce. Like, so you've got, if you don't have a university degree, you're not even going to fucking make a living wage off full-time work. If you have a university degree, unless you're already coming from a wealthy background, it's going to be crippling debt. So it's like, neither of those things really incentivize the youth to go out and get a job. Let's be realistic here. And that neither of those are nearly as big of factors here in Australia. And big shock, getting work that you can live off of is easier here. And it's the thing is, it took me a while to get work between jobs. Like, I had to fill out probably 20 or 30 applications and do a few interviews before I got one that I was accepted into. But the process just works better here. And again, to reiterate the point I made a little while ago, I think this idea that because America has a higher population, it's just magically okay to have these shitty things going on where university is out of reach for most people and menial work doesn't allow them to survive. It's not conducive to a first world society, because if you have, like, I could potentially write an album. Like, I've got an album worth of music written that I want to release at some point. I can do other stuff to also add to the economic pool and to, like, strengthen capitalism. And because I'm a capitalism type of guy, and, like, I just think this idea that if everyone's given just at least enough to work with, it will cause an economic boom. There will be more goods for people to buy. There will be more incentive to produce things. As it is now in the U.S., if I was working the same job in the U.S., I wouldn't have the free time or the spare funds to do any sort of endeavor that would allow me to create my own business or to any economic stimulation whatsoever. I wouldn't have spare funds to spend on little luxuries here and there. But that spending on luxuries is actually good for the businesses, these huge multi-billion-dollar businesses. Being able to buy their products is also good for them. It's a win-win economically, but I mean, some people just refuse to accept that logic for whatever reason. They're just sort of ingrained in this idea that businesses should not be held accountable whatsoever, and they should just be able to pay people whatever they like. And I think, you got to have some rules in place, some sort of way to ensure a higher standard of living. And I don't know why people are so against it, or certain people are so against it. I really just don't understand.
Yeah, you think about this a lot, huh? I can tell.
Yeah, I probably read and listen to far too much politically inclined stuff, and I listen to both sides of the fence as well. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I just try to listen to what both of them have to say, and I pick what I agree with on each individual topic.
That's right.
On the topic of, that's the thing. On the topic of economy and jobs, I tend to be pretty left. But then there's stuff where I'm pretty right wing as well, and so no one ends up liking. You remember that little rant I had on Doomworld?
I ends up happening. That. Yeah, I thought that was really cool of you to bring that up. And let's summarize it. What I forget exactly what it was about. I remember you were saying that it's okay to be politically independent. Right? Is that
essentially? Yeah.
That was basically the message, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it seems like people in my normal life they don't really define themselves one way or the other, but I do see a lot of it on the internet, and I don't know if people, and it's weird, because it seems like not even all people are defining themselves. They're getting called these labels by other people. And if you think one way or the other, there's just kind of this dichotomy. You can be you're with us or you're against us. You're either on the red team or you're on the blue team.
Yeah.
And that is kind of I don't know. I have a problem with the internet, obviously. Just you probably saw in my thread recently on Doomworld about how forums are dead.
It's funny too. I think I think you were one of the few people who saw my little post and knew it was just kind of a little joke. But some people took it quite seriously, apparently. Like, I'm like, I don't agree that Doomworld, that forums are dead, but at the same time, like, doesn't mean I have anything against 40. Like, what the hell? You know what? It's a crazy leap to make, that because I disagree with someone on an idea, I have any sort of issue with that person. Unless the idea is really like intrinsic to my character, which, let's be honest, an assessment of Doomworld, I mean, different people are going to have different opinions, and that's just how that goes, you know?
Yeah. What I was trying to communicate with that thread was that not necessarily that Doomworld itself is dead, because obviously there's a lot of people there, and there's plenty of people active, and there's a lot of Doom wads being pumped out and all kinds of stuff. The reason I brought that up is because when I signed up to the forums, I signed up around 2007, 2008 or so, and I was lurking before that, and there was a different type of people that were there, and some of them are still here, and but a lot of them have left. But I remember when I entered into the community, there was a lot more of like more like political arguments and religious type stuff that we were just talking about just now, and What I'm finding is that it's these are very sensitive issues, and they're becoming more and more sensitive as time moves on. And what's kind of weird is I think there's a lot to learn about people when they talk about their personal experiences and their perspectives and things like that. And what I feel like is going on in Doomworld now is that when we're just kind of making these threads where it's just like, if someone just like, let's say somebody made a thread today about, hey, I like video games. These are a list of video games I like. And everybody would read the thread and say, oh, I like video games too. Like. And there's just kind of this farming where people are just kind of saying things that everybody agrees with. And that's pretty much the how deep conversations are going to get, because we're just kind of only talking about things in
very surface level stuff.
Yeah, very surface level stuff. And to give you a couple examples, there's a few people like on that used to be on Doomworld that aren't around anymore, but they wouldn't survive. But even if they were here, I don't think they'd survive in this kind of environment. Like for example, GGG Mork, like he posts like these like weird, crazy conspiracies and all kinds of stuff like that. But I enjoyed reading
beautiful threads. Yeah. GGG Mork is sorely missed by some of us.
I know. I really miss him a lot, and I don't know where to find him elsewhere since he's been banned. And I would hope that he finds out about Dimmerboards and signs up there and just posts whatever he feels like there. But I don't know where else to find him. And you don't have to agree with him, but he's allowed to exist. And I don't think he needs to be silenced. And I don't know. I'm not saying that if you say something that's kind of racy or something and people are responding in a negative way, they're not necessarily silencing you, because you can post as much as you want. But
sure,
it's just it's a toxic environment. It's not fun to share something that you feel very deep and personal about and be surrounded by people who fucking hate you for it. And if you look at my thread, and it just kind of if you just kind of the way I kind of, after I made that thread and just kind of made the post that I did, I kind of looked at it a little objectively, just kind of trying to imagine that I was somebody else and just kind of looking at it. And it was weird to see that my posts, the way I responded to people's posts, even when they said something really mean, like if you're saying this, then you mean that, or you have your head stuck in your ass, or whatever. I would take what they're saying and kind of run it through a filter in my head. Like I would rearrange what they're saying to say, 40 ounce, I'm not sure I understand what you mean. Could you explain further? And then I would respond to it.
Translating into something sane, then responding to that.
Yeah. So what I felt, I'm sure some people disagree with me, but I felt like I was being very pragmatic in how I explained myself. And the point I'm trying to make is that all I'm trying to do is express a feeling. And those feelings are mine, and I'm allowed to have them. And I don't think that, and I think everybody should be allowed to have their feelings. And I'm not intruding on anybody's, like if I actually persuaded anybody to believe that the forums are dead but before, like, and even though they thought that they were alive and well now, and somehow my post just pushed them over the edge and they're like, wait, forums are dead, I'd actually be really shocked, because I wasn't trying to persuade anybody to believe or do anything differently. I'm just saying this is how I feel about the forums right now.
Just putting your opinion out there, you know?
Yeah, it's just when you tell somebody something very deep and personal about yourself, people have a lot to learn from that, and that creates fun conversation because you don't have to agree with it, but at least if if I see somebody post something personal about themselves, I know that about them. And so like to go back to GGG Mork, I know that he probably spends a lot of time reading and watching like conspiracy videos and all kinds of like crazy nonsense, and I don't have to agree with it, but I am very interested in what he does.
Exactly.
So that was kind of the message I was trying to purport with that thread, is in that I kind of feel like people are moving in the direction where we just kind of want to be these robots, where we just want to say things that will make people like us and follow us and things like that, instead of telling each other how they really feel about certain topics.
I definitely see where you're coming from with that, and with the way you've explained it to me just then, I definitely see your point of view, and I think I know that Ling and a few of the other administrators and moderators wanted the political discussions to kind of end. And I think, especially based on what you've told me just then and what I've read and what I've sort of thought about it from my own perspective, I think what happened really was people, I think, and this is just my theory, Ling is free to correct me if he even hears this or any wind of this, but I think what happened is people weren't just willing to disagree. It had to turn into, I mean, and I'm not going to name any names, but there was a usual crew, I'll just say, who would come in, and because they disagree with you, they couldn't just attack your points and make their own points.
Yeah.
They would have to resort to like belittling you and calling you names and shit. And I mean, again, if they want to do that, that's fine. But that behavior doesn't encourage debating ideas. That behavior just encourages like walling yourself off even further from those you disagree with.
Right.
And I think this is my theory. That's what Lane got tired of. He got tired of people being at each other's throats personally because they disagreed on topic A, B, or C. And it was like, I would like to have the political discussions back up and running, because I thought that they were interesting and intellectually stimulating. And like you said, you sometimes just have to run it. If someone can't express their point without calling you a cunt and calling you an idiot and calling you blah, 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 then so be it. Just try and fucking filter all that shit out and see their point through all that garbage. You know what I mean? And I thought that was interesting to do. And if anything, like, I think if someone has to resort to personal time, it's pretty much impossible to get me like truly offended over the internet. Like, it's all people who I'm likely to never meet in person. And they can berate me however they want, and I really couldn't give a fuck. But when it comes to the opinions, I am interested to have. I mean, the only way to really develop your own opinions is to see ones that differ from yours, discuss why they're different, think about it from their perspective, think about it from your perspective. I think the sharing of different perspectives and ideas leads to more understanding on both sides of the fence. And some people are capable of that, like Miano. Is an example of a guy who I disagree with a lot of political shit on it, but me and him are friends. We like to deathmatch together and shit. It's because we can disagree like strongly on certain points, but it doesn't mean like, oh, you think differently about the world than I do, you fucking cunt. Like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. You
are right on the money. Like, that's exactly what I'm trying to communicate. Like I see Doomworld as this place where people can get together and we all unify under this umbrella that we all like Doom, and we don't have to agree on everything else. That's okay. It's okay. We all like Doom, and that's what we're here for. And that's just kind of it makes me feel like the forums are just kind of stale when that's kind of the direction. Like when any kind of heated topic kind of goes in that direction, where it's just shit flinging. And it doesn't have to be that way. And if you don't agree, you don't have to. I mean, you can not participate, but you can watch from the sidelines or whatever. But if you want to communicate your feelings, you should be allowed to do that. And
I agree.
Yeah, I thought you would. When you said you disagreed, I felt like you probably just didn't understand. And I feel like a lot of people on the thread didn't understand. And I understand that. That's okay. If they don't get it, and even if they still disagree, that's still okay. But now you guys know that about me, and I'm interested in knowing about how you guys feel about stuff.
Well, that's
yeah.
See, it's funny. I honestly, I don't know if I personally like it. Maybe I would prefer it if political discussions were more frequent. And hey, if shit flinging happens, shit flinging happens. If it gets to the point where people are being so fucking rude, fuck you and blah blah blah. Okay, lock the thread. But I mean, I still think even beneath all that bullshit, there is an interesting back and forth happening that is thought provoking, and you just really need to be able to not be offended by dirty words and read that shit. But at the same time, I think making your point clearly doesn't really require berating someone, and I think that's what I think that the other Doomworld staff. I mean, like I've said before, Ling only somewhat recently made me the moderator of the multiplayer forum. But I think the other longtime staff, I've been around the community for a long time, but I haven't really had much say in the direction things take. But I think he just was tired of people getting angry and calling each other cunts, calling each other blah. It's like no one could just disagree. They have to be an asshole about it. And I think that's what he got tired of. That's my theory. And I've thought about putting a forum on Doom Shack, like not to compete with Doomworld or anything, but just to have like another place for people to talk about Doom and non-Doom shit. And pretty much my approach would be that a thread only needs to be locked if it's getting so bad that the vulgarity is like outshining the actual topic, because there's people reading this shit. Some of them want to just laugh at people being called cunts, but others want to actually think about this and discuss it. And there's this old like, well, don't go to a Doom forum if you want deep discussion. It's like, yeah, but I know the people here. These are people whose opinion actually means something to me, rather than just a bunch of randoms. And and I think when Contra Commando and the rest of them started up Dimmerboards, I think they just basically wanted to have a place where you can have an open dialogue. But the thing is, it's basically got a reputation as like the tiny Republican Doomworld.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't really want to.
Doomworld.
Well, that's the thing. It's like a lot of people don't really want to go there because of that, and I can understand that.
Yeah.
I was like, I would want to start up maybe like a centrist forum, and welcome the guys from Doomworld to join and speak their mind. Tell me why you support Trump, and I can respond to you without being a douche. And then some people from Doomworld who are politically inclined, more leftist view, tell me why you hate Trump. And if it comes to vulgarity, so be it. I really like these ideas being out there, and I just think there's something cool about the thing we have in common is Doom, but we disagree with politics, so let's argue about it. Something about that just appeals to me personally.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Doom staff should have to host that there if they don't want to. That's totally fine by me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But it would be nice if there was a place that didn't seem like it already had a political leaning one way or the other that people could go. And that's I mean, I'm not, there hasn't really been any progress with it. But if I ever do start a Doom Shack forum, it'll mainly be about server and Doom chat. But there will definitely be, instead of everything else, I would call it anything goes, because that's what the whole idea would be. Any topic goes here. And as long as you're not telling someone you're going to rape them or kill them, you're free to speak your mind.
Yeah.
And I think that the community might benefit from that. At least those of us who like to have these arguments.
Yeah, I've heard somewhere that I heard a quote from somewhere. I forget where I heard it from, but the guy said, it wasn't on Doomworld, but somebody said that if someone resorts to violence and name calling and stuff, it's because they ran out of other ammunition. And I agree with that. I think that if people run out of things to talk about, they start attacking the person who's delivering the message on a more personal level than actually the ideas they have behind it. And that's kind of how I felt in my thread, because I wasn't really trying to attack anybody. I was just trying to I'm just trying to express a point that I feel about this particular thing, and I think that's okay.
Well, that's I definitely agree there, and I think to add to that point, sometimes they've run out of talking points, or their argument has kind of been put in a corner, so that they lash out. But other times, I think it's because some people actually start to think and start to question their own ideas and start to think, maybe I'm wrong. and that makes them angry.
Yeah,
And so instead
that's a hard
of
thing to
opening
own
up,
up
they kind
to.
of go defense.
That's such a hard thing to own up to. It's just to admit when you're wrong, and it should be okay. Like it's it took me a long time to like kind of accept that that's actually okay, that people actually grow up and their opinions change. So it's actually okay to like be wrong about something once in a while and just own up to it and realize that you thought something different when you were, less mature than you are now.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
It's funny. I've just various little spots around the internet. There's archived shit from like 2002 and 2003. I mean, I was literally a kid still, and I'm just saying, I say the most retarded shit, But the thing is, it's like that was basically a past lifetime, I mean, like this idea that once you have a opinion on something, you have to stand by that conviction, have a death grip on it till the end of time. To me, is just ridiculous.
Yeah, we've all been there. I mean, we've all been there. I mean, like if you look, I'm sure anybody who has a long post history can look back at their first couple of posts and realize how fucking stupid they were. I mean, everybody, we all do it. I mean, we all grow up, we all evolve, we all change. We have new ideas, we learn new information. That happens.
Well, it's funny. I remember when I was like 10 and the 9/11 attacks were still like fresh.
Yeah.
Hellbent, of all people, on Doomworld. I don't know. I doubt he'd remember any of this, but I talked to him on Doom Connector every now and then. And he was one of those like 9/11 is a conspiracy type dudes, and I had no opinion on the matter. I was a kid, but I read into it, and for a few years I believed that it was true. I was like, the American government set up this attack to use it as a perfect excuse to go and invade these countries and get their oil, essentially. And then I realized, I'm like, well, I looked at the other side of the argument and thought, oh, well, no, realistically, that's ridiculous. But the thing that outraged me about that, if that theory were true, the thing that outraged me is, fuck, look, this has just been used as an excuse to go and get oil. And even so, now I'm of the mind that 9/11 was a genuine attack and there wasn't, planned demolition or anything like that. I've opened up my eyes to see that's just a bunch of conspiracy shit. But the thing that outrages me about it still outrages me about it. It was still used as a fucking excuse to go and invade these countries and get their fucking oil. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people debate the actual point. Was the demolition planned, and kind of miss that they don't see the forest for the trees. They kind of miss the overarching point, that is what happened in the wake of 9/11 blows, and whether or not the conspiracy is true. And I don't believe it is anymore. I haven't for years, but the repercussions of it are still fucking gross and unjust and horrible. And people seem to have, like, that aspect of the discussion, which to me is by far the more important half, gets lost, and it goes into, well, can jet fuel melt steel beams and all this bullshit. It's like, really, that's all irrelevant to what's happened as a result of 9/11. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And that was I just used that as an example because that was like right around the time. I'd only been online for a couple of years at that point. I was still a little kid, but I was always really interested in politics ever since I was young. And that was one of my first sort of springs into that topic. You know what I mean?
Could you imagine if somebody posted a 9/11 thread today on Doomworld? How quickly that would get deleted? You can't talk about it. You can't have an opinion about that. You're wrong. If you even question it.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. Even no matter what side of the fence you're on or anything, I just don't think that the other Doomworld, the guys who run Doomworld, I just think that they're tired of that because they know, instead of being a discussion where people share ideas, there'd be probably, 5 posts that are people sharing opposing ideas, and then it would turn into this shitstorm of, you're a stupid, worthless cunt because your opinion is different than mine. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things, and I wouldn't. You know what though? When people act like that, I don't think the best thing to do is silence them because then they just become a martyr.
Yeah.
I think that the best to do is like let them say their piece and let the community observe and see it as a spectacle.
Yeah.
Reputation points mean nothing. Reputation of people's opinion of you and reading your actual content of your posts and is what to me has always been reputation. The points are just there. Ling has even said he doesn't place any value on these points. It was just the form software default. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah,
think
I
that's
get
what it
behind
should
that.
be as well. Like if someone wants to come in and be an asshole, and their talking points are so weak that they have to resort to a bunch of personal attacks, then fucking let them go. As long as they're not threatening anyone else directly, just
Yeah, just let
fucking
him
let
dig
them.
his own grave.
Yeah, exactly. That's the approach I would take. And some people could say, "Oh, that sounds like a cesspool," and so be it. It's a cesspool. It's there if you like it. If you don't, there's other forums.
Yeah, but like, is it not entertaining? I mean, I love it. I would
Oh,
like
it
to.
is.
It's amazing, isn't it? That
It's-
everybody. I mean, well, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of people are disappointed that Post Hell is gone. And I mean, I'm sure it probably served no real value, but it's great to have. It's great to see threads where people have like meltdowns and like, or just talk about stupid shit. I mean, it's great. It's fun to watch.
well, that's a thing. I mean, you go on to Doomworld or anything like that. Sometimes you have a specific goal, like, oh shit, I need to learn how to do specific thing X in Doom Builder. But sometimes you're just like, I'm going here and I want to be entertained, and
yeah.
that serves as a means of entertainment. And I really don't see that big of a deal. I mean, the community might seem toxic to some people who are afraid of bad words and controversial topics, and then and that's their prerogative. But if I ever do end up actually starting a forum, it'll be open to that kind of shit. And if people think it's a cesspool, then they can think it's a cesspool. But some people get a lot of entertainment out of that, and
Yeah.
along the way, it actually makes people think too. And I would be happy to have it run that way. But at the same time, like, I respect what the Doomworld guys want for Doomworld, and I love the site. I've loved the site for a long fucking time.
Yeah, there's
And
no doubt about that.
even if things have gone shallow, that's okay with me. In fact, the thought of having a Doom site to go where the discussion is just Doom oriented or little surface level things like what game do you like, and then have the other option of going to a forum where it gets a bit hot and heavy,
Yeah.
I would be okay with that. I would like having both of those because I know some people would only be interested in one, and some people would only be interested in the other, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But
And then
there's
pick
that
your
middle
form.
demographic
Exactly.
of people who want both, and it would be cool to have an alternative. I mean, Dimmerboards was meant to be an alternative, but it just had that. And I think it's unfortunate because I mean I disagree with most of the guys who are there, but I don't dislike them on any personal level.
Absolutely.
I think it's cool that they have ideas I disagree with, so I can have an argument with them and expand my own perspective.
Yeah, that's actually that is the direction I'd like to see Doomer boards go in. And I actually invited Contra Commander to be on this show, and I haven't we haven't really worked something out for like an exact date or anything. But I do like the idea of Doomer boards being like just an alternative Doom forum. It doesn't have to be us versus them. It's just another place where you can go. And I was hoping that I'm hopeful that he takes it in that direction. I hope that there's some things that he can do. I don't know what he can do, but I'm hopefully he comes up with some idea to kind of go in that direction. I want Doomer boards to blow up. It would be cool to be able to check two different forums just to see what's going on both different perspectives, just to know what's going on. And I don't want it to seem like there's a war between the two of them. And I don't think there really is, but I think it can be perceived that way.
Yeah, and I think that. Now, this is my theory, and I have no intentions of no longer visiting Doomer boards or anything like that. But I think my theory is, the ship has sailed and it's got a reputation that it's got.
Yeah.
And I'd like to start a place where these guys, the guys from Doomer boards and the left-leaning people from Doomworld, who just kind of don't really pipe up about politics anymore. And because a lot of the time the leftist dudes, I fucking disagree with them big time. Like they're all gone now because were all held, some years ago. But I had these huge arguments with various, like what I would consider pretty far left people on various topics as well. So the arguments have definitely gone both ways, and I got a lot of entertainment out of that. And I think the left-leaning guys think, well, fuck going to Doomer boards. It's run by those right-winger Doomers, and they'll allow me to say what I want, but I'll be speaking on deaf ears and blah blah blah. And
Yeah.
I think, well, if I think it would be cool if there was a place that didn't have a reputation like that. And I think it's unfortunate that Doomer boards has that reputation because I actually like going there and stretching myself. flex your ideas a little bit and see how well they hold up to scrutiny. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I'm okay with Doomworld now being a place where that doesn't happen, but I would like to see an alternative that had no sort of reputation going in, other than being, hey, this is a forum where you can discuss things, and short of being like an outright dickhead, your opinion is allowed, basically.
Yeah, it seems like you're the right guy to do it too, because I know a lot of people. Well, I'm not. I shouldn't speak for everybody else, but from my perspective, I think you're very good at walking on a line. I think a lot of people respect you no matter what side of the fence they're on, and I think that's very cool. I think you'd be the right person to kind of create a forum in that kind of respect.
Well, it could happen. It could happen. It's not definite, but it's a potential thing to come in the next few months.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, I would definitely like to expand the horizons of discussion to consolidate everything we just said. I would like to expand what can be discussed in the Doom community and have it in a place where no one really feels excluded. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm glad you feel that way. I hope there's other people that feel that way too. I did post a thread on Doomworld once, asking what people's opinions on Flame Wars were. Like even if you're not involved with it, just participate or just like watching it or whatever, just to see things go down. And I was actually really surprised. Most people were very negative about it. They really didn't enjoy Flame Wars at all. And I guess I don't know. Maybe if they thought if they were on the receiving end of a Flame War or something, or I don't know. It depends on how they interpret it. But I actually enjoy it, and I actually like participating in it too. It gives me a lot to think about. And
well, see, that's the thing. I don't like a flame war for the sake of a flame war. But if a topic after a few pages of a thread devolves into a flame war, I think that's a little different, because there's already some material there. There's already conflicting ideas there. There's something to be gained potentially from reading that thread, even if it's just purely some laughs and entertainment. I still see that as something to be gained. But if someone reads the thread and is exposed to a new idea that is enlightening for them in some way, well, that's great too. That's the approach I take on it.
Yeah, we okay. So we covered politics and we covered Doomworld politics.
Yeah.
And the social situation there. You made another rant a while ago that I thought was pretty cool too. And it's something that I think it attributes to. I think you allude to it in your custom title on Doomworld, is where you're a Wadist old school sexual.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you posted something to the effect that I'm going based on how I remember it. So I'm sorry if I'm misremembering it. But you said something to the effect that WADs that are being made these days seem to be straying really far away from the source material, the way like the original iWads and how mapping was when it first started. It kind of went in its own direction, and that's not necessarily a good thing, but it's not necessarily a bad thing either. But am I understanding that right?
Yeah. Well, I would say generally, yeah. That's for me personally. I loved Doom. When I was like fucking 4 or something, when I first gazed upon the glory of Doom, and it was. I mean, I'm romanticizing it, but seriously, I mean, it was as far as a video game goes. I mean, it was like love at first sight, man. That shit was fucking great.
I was 4 when I played it too.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I was. I had brothers who they came home with a floppy disk and they installed it on our computer. They had the shareware version of Doom, and I don't know. They knew all the cheat codes. I don't know how they knew, but they wrote them down for me, and I got to play through the first episode on I'm Too Young to Die with all the cheat codes turned on, IDKFA, ID, and it was a mesmerizing experience. I was glued to that game.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's great in terms of nostalgia, and there's the thing that I think a lot of, and I'm glad. I want to be clear. I kind of alluded to this in the rant, but for anyone who may be listening who doesn't know, I think it's great that the Doom modding has expanded to the point where you have a mix of iWad, derivative iWad type stuff, which was kind of like what I make, And then you have like the shit that goes really far and stretches the boundaries, like in terms of mapping visuals. You've got stuff like Ancient Aliens, and in terms of gameplay, there's stuff like Complex Doom. And I think the existence of that stuff is fucking fantastic. I don't think every Doom mod should be made to suit me, but I think it's unfortunate when you make something that like is. I mean, let's be realistic here. You make a map that is solid and it's old school, and the gameplay is pretty darn good. And I don't know. I guess the tastes have changed for a lot of people, or maybe they came into it. They began dooming and mapping well after the IWAD similar stuff had faded because modding capabilities have increased. But I think like I like Doom. I like Doomy Doom, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, who's to say what's really Doomy?" And I'm like, "Well, fucking the IWADs are, you know. But that's the source game is what says what's Doomy, you know." And that's the sign of stuff that I like. And I started deathmatching in 2001, and naturally, some of the biggest WADs at the time, which were already a little bit old, were like Dwango 5 and Dwango 6, and Execution was still new, pretty much at that point. And I don't know if you played much deathmatch, but these are like classics. These are like old staples.
Yeah.
And I love that shit because it's the core game that I fell in love with back when I was 4 and I first played. And then every now and then, you know, I like to have a bash on something like Ancient Aliens or a Complex Doom or anything. Like I can't think of the other ones off the top of my head, but over the years on different multiplayer servers, especially, different mods and different map sets show up. And even if I only get, you know, an hour of entertainment out of them, I'm glad they exist. But at the same time, like, it's weird to get your map. This is what I'm getting at. And again, everyone's entitled to their opinion. And really, I would never want someone to not say their opinion just because of some arbitrary reason. But it's weird to have your map criticized as like, oh, this map is ugly. You know, it's like, well, fuck, how much did you hate the IWADs? Like, what the fuck, you know?
Well, that's the thing. Some of them do. There have been threads on Doomworld where people are like, what the fuck is going on with Doom 2? Like, why is downtown, why are these buildings just look like big squares and not actual like buildings or anything? Yeah, I don't know. I do understand those arguments. And you're right. People should be able to make whatever they feel like making. And that's totally cool. And I actually really commend that. I think people should make what they feel like making instead of what they're taught to make or what the trend is for that, what the flavor of the month is or whatever. But I understand what you're saying because I actually did. I think not too long ago, I felt like playing Doom on co-op. So I looked on, I opened up Internet Doom Explorer and I wanted to look around to join some servers. And I noticed what most people were playing. When I would look at the WADs and stuff, and I would see, oh, someone's playing Alien Vendetta. That looks cool. But they're playing it with like, oh my god, weapons and Nashgore. I'm like, oh, well, I don't even know what they're playing today, but they're playing all sorts of like mods and stuff. And when I click on a server and they're running like 30 different WADs at once, like all these new skins and new weapons and gameplay mods and all kinds of shit. Like, what are you even playing anymore?
Yeah, you're playing a game that has Doom as its very base engine, but the level design, the enemy functionality, and the weapon functionality is all drastically changed from Doom.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, like, you know, to me, my approach is this. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I make what I want to play. That's what I've always done. When I'm making a Doom map, as long as if it's a community thing, I want to make it feel cohesive with the rest of the project.
Right.
But that aside, I make what I want to play, and you know, if other people like that, I think that's great. And if people don't like it, I think that's great as well. There's plenty of other WADs out there to play if you don't like what I'm making. And I'm not in it to get the biggest audience or whatever. I'm just in it to make maps that I find enjoyable, and other old school addicts will also get some enjoyment out of it too. I think that's great.
Yeah,
and,
is that kind of where your argument was sourced from? Like people were saying that your maps like don't look good or something.
Oh well, that's a really old thing. Like me and a few other guys in the multiplayer community who I get along with quite well, actually, we're kind of like, you know, they criticized a few gameplay elements and visual elements as well, and I think that's totally cool by me. If everyone wanted the same thing, it'd be boring.
Yeah.
But it was just funny to me because I was there a long ass time ago. There's other people in the community who've been there way longer, like since the late '90s and shit, when I was still too young to really be into it, to have access to it more accurately. But yeah, like it's funny to see what was once like an accepted trope now be something that people like hate. Like, there's parts of a map where you got a wall hump, or in a deathmatch there's traps, or there's little secrets and shit, and people are like, well, no one wants to play a map where they've got to learn about it. No one has the patience for that shit anymore. They want to have a map where everything at face value is apparent. And I'm like, you can if you want to appeal to the largest crowd, and you think that that's what appeals, then make that. If that's your goal, then do that. But I'm not trying to appeal to the largest crowd. I'm trying to bring what I love about old school deathmatch and old school deathmatch sets up to a certain standard that I personally enjoy. Like, a lot of my deathmatch maps are Dwango-like, except they look a little bit better than Dwango, and they play maybe a little bit smoother than Dwango. But it still has the similar design philosophies, and to me, it's cool. It's like this refined version of what I liked. But for people who are newer to it, for certain people, it's not even close to refined enough. Like, they want every gun to be instantly visible. They don't want a single trap. They don't want a single thing out of place. They want to be able to know the whole map in a matter of seconds. And if they're into that, that's great. But I'm not here to draw the hugest crowd. I'm here to do some 2 to 6 person death matches, you know what I mean? And we all, after playing the map, 8 times, we've all learned it, and now we can all have a go. I just think that that's the approach that I like to take.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I get what you're saying. Because I do occasionally, like, well, not that occasionally, but there were times where I would like go through like Maximum Doom, because they have like a whole set of like deathmatch levels in that set, and there's thousands of deathmatch levels, but they do kind of follow in that same like in the footsteps of the IWADs in the way that they don't look that great. And the BFG is in like the secret door that you have to find, and and like sometimes you'll spend like maybe a minute or two looking for a weapon, and maybe that's not part of the fun for some people, but I think that's because like player versus player game modes have kind of evolved in that direction where they want them to be like Fast and Furious right away. I don't know why I said Fast and Furious.
It's accurate though. The term makes sense.
Yeah, like the weapons are kind of like in these obscure locations, and you have to like actually search the map out and find them. And I mean, there was thousands of maps made during that time, so there had to have been some people that liked it. There had to have been a reason behind it why people like that. And I can get behind it. I haven't played a lot of deathmatch on maps like that because it's like probably next to impossible to find a server that'll host one. But I understand what you're saying, and yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of I've played them with bots and stuff before, but of course the bots can't figure it out either, which might speak for it. But yeah, it's funny because I think like the idea of the deathmatch layout is very uniform across the board, as opposed to what people think it should be. It should be just like this arena where there's just one main area, and then there's kind of like these hallways that kind of loop into it, and everybody starts on top of super shotguns, and it just has to be that way in order to be fun.
I like my WADs. What I try to do for the 10 people out there who actually like playing them. What I did was some maps had that thing. Like, I always start the player with at least like a shotgun or something, but so in case you do run across someone and you haven't had a chance to go where you want to go, you can kill them.
Yeah.
But I'm in between. Like, a lot of the big map sets these days, not even these days, but for the last like 5 to 10 years now, actually, have been really focused on the small arena that everyone can see what's going on. And then there was the deathmatch of old, like where maps were a bit bigger and slower. I like something in between. And it's funny because it's like, I don't want it to be, sometimes it gets too Fast and Furious, to use that hilarious little line again, but sometimes the other ones get too slow. And I like something in between, you know. I like to have a second to breathe and scope shit out and then get into the fragging. But it doesn't take like minutes to find another person. At the same time, I don't necessarily want to spawn with a super shotgun and be shot by someone with a super shotgun like a second later. You know what I mean? Like, that's also not. I like something in between, and I like map sets that offer variety. And I feel like, let's say you have 10 maps in your deathmatch WOD, 5 of them are a little more slow and old school, and 5 of them are a little more fast and, I don't want to say new school, but modern in design.
Yeah.
Your WOD will get a 5 out of 10. You know what I mean? Like, because there's like, oh, well, these 5 maps that were small and fast were great, but the slower ones I wasn't a big fan of. And it just, again, to clarify on all that, I think that people having a variety of tastes is great. It's just funny to see it change over time and see how the play. Someone said, I think it's more a change in the players than anything else. Like, the actual player base is different. People are coming off the backs of different games than they were, 15 years ago. And I think that's a huge thing as well. And it's just funny to digress for a minute here. I don't want to derail it too much, but it's funny. I've been seeing deathmatch is dead ever since I started deathmatching, and all the time it's never fucking died. You know what I mean? Like, so it's great. It's great to me that people are doing new things. And like, there was the guys from A3 or the Mechanics Union. They made Don't Be a Bitch and Aeon Deathmatch, and those are both fucking beautiful. Like, I would never think to make something like that, and the design philosophies are just so fucking different from what I would do. But I'm glad it exists because it takes something, and it's really, you can feel the effort and you can feel the passion that went into it while you're playing it, and it's actually fucking beautiful. So I like that there's a variety of stuff now, but it's just funny to have your maps criticized for being X, Y, or Z when, I mean, at one point that was the norm,
That's crazy that you mentioned that way you can kind of feel the passion behind the map design. That's I'm going through, like, I'm writing like all these like tutorials on Doomworld on like how to make better maps and whatever, and like help people cross these gaps and problems that aren't very well defined. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I understand that completely, because I play that. I like to go through. I do enjoy playing 1994 WODs, and
yeah,
I know most people don't, and that's okay. That's fine. I mean, if I feel a certain way, but I don't want to get to, but whatever. I do enjoy 1994 WODs, and a lot of the reasons I do enjoy it is that I can kind of follow the person's logic as I'm playing it. Like, they want to create this kind of narrative, this story, and it's not always obvious, but you can see subtle details. Like, maybe like you'll walk into some of these buildings, like some of these maps, they start inside someone's house. You're just you're in the person's bedroom, and you can see like the computer desk with the computer on it, and the bed, and you can go into the bathroom, and like they had this idea for a map where they were just in their home. They just woke up in the morning, and the demons invaded, and there's monsters everywhere, and their whole neighborhood is destroyed. And it's fun to like kind of go through, even though it's shitty, it's funny to like kind of like follow what this person was trying to communicate with their map, and just kind of like be involved in this story, this idea that they had. And just kind of follow in with the narrative, and just kind of like push this idea that like WODs have to look cool, and they have to look amazing, and they have to have a certain level of detail, and they have to have these particular gameplay elements and whatever. Just push that aside and just accept the idea that you're playing a WOD where somebody's just telling you a story. They just had an idea, they put you in a scenario, and just kind of go with it. And that's kind of that's the experience that I get from playing like 1994 WODs, and that's one of the reasons why I think that your rant was so great, because I think people kind of have this, they put these map design philosophies and stuff on a pedestal that are highly based on like criticism that they received. And I can get behind that. I think it's okay. It's very important to listen to criticism, but there's a certain kind of magic involved when you're playing a map that you feel the passion behind it. You understand that this person had like a really fun idea, and they were having fun making this type of map.
Sure. It's funny. I agree with that because I'm obviously a lover of old school stuff. Not strictly old school stuff, but I love the old school shit as well. And I agree. It's, to me, there's almost like, I guess the way that I listen to music and the way that I play Doom maps is similar in that sometimes if I feel like I can almost detect when something was done because, hey, the community will love this, the thing, or versus, wow,
Right.
this is what I really like, this is what I wanted to make, and so on. And I think that they both have a place. I don't want anyone to misunderstand me here. I think that they both have a place and they both need to exist. But for me personally, I've always been a fan of the stuff that's like, what do they think is going to be fun first and foremost? What do they want? And secondarily, hey, if it appeals to a lot of people, that's great too. Like, that's the approach that I take. And I feel like, I mean, I'm obviously no one's going to, it seems like a very deep thing to try and draw from what is essentially sectors and line defs that someone's put down. But, you know, trying to infer whether or not it was done for the map to be popular, or if it was done because they like it. There's always, that's open to interpretation.
Yeah.
But when I personally get that vibe, it appeals to me. When I get this vibe that, hey, they've done this thing and it's cool, it's different. The thing is with a lot of people responding to criticism of maps, you get a lot of stuff being released that's sort of homogenized, and I think it's great. Like sometimes a newcomer will come to Doomworld, you know, in this era, this day and age, and they'll post a map that looks like, you know, there's Z-Doomisms, but at its core, it really feels like a 1995 sort of, hey, here's my idea, let me sketch it out and see how it goes. Something about that just really appeals to me. And I'll never encourage someone to stay on that path because I want them to succeed, to do what they see as succeeding as a mapper. But it's still funny whenever people come in and say, hey, you know, add these details here. This gameplay thing is bad. This gameplay thing is good. Basically taking what they did and adding it into the homogenized batch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's cool that happens, but at the same time, like I really like the first submissions and second submissions of people whenever they just have, if they have any degree of competency in terms of like getting the sectors moving and doors functioning and a progression. When that's in place, I like the weird shit, like gameplay shit, like, oh, this frustrated me at first, but it made me stretch my approach to dooming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want something that's like, oh, cool, let me turn this into that other 20 fucking maps I played that also did this. It's like, no, I like that this is different and that this surprised me and caught me off guard. It's nice to be caught off guard.
Yeah.
That's part of what I love about it.
What do you think Deathmatch needs? I played in Odomex Saturday Nitro not a few weeks ago, and I was playing in these death matches with like 30 plus other people, and I was kind of like in the middle on the scoreboards. There's no way I could compete with some of the better players, but what I found is it's just like ridiculously chaotic. There's just, especially when you're in a server with like 20, 30 other people, there's just so much shit going on. There's a guy in the corner who's just shooting rockets at all the spawn zones, and the guy who gets the plasma gun just like mows everybody down, and you don't know, and like the first like 15, 20 deaths that you experience, you don't even know where the super shotgun is on the map. And I thought it was just like so ridiculously chaotic, and I was wondering if there's maybe like Odomex Saturday Nitro could probably get some traction if there were like WADs designed for it, maybe WADs that were designed to encompass 30 people in it. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that? What do you think Deathmatch could use in order to gain more popularity and be like more approachable to most people?
Well, see, it's a really difficult nut to crack because a lot of the maps, like a lot of times, there's almost, even when you organize a match with other people a day or two beforehand, there's really no way to know how many people are going to end up there. And so maps designed with like 4 to 8 people in mind are good to pick because you might only end up with 3 people. And 3 people can realistically have a good death match on a map that's designed somewhat smaller. But sometimes it just goes off tap and you get like 20 people connecting. it's one of those things where if you start a death match on a map that could hold 20 people, people get so bored that they don't hang around. But then if you start a death match on a map that's designed for 6 people, people love it, and so they stick around. And then over time, more and more join the server. And next thing you know, you've got 20 people playing on the map where the designer had like 6 in mind. You know what I mean? And it's really there's no real way to correct for that I can think of. But at the same time, like I love playing a smaller map. This is just me personally. I love playing a smaller map with like 3 or 4 people, and having that sort of like focused deathmatch where there's a few frags. Let's say in like a minute you'll get a few frags. But I like also when it does blow up, and there's just like it's insane, it's chaotic. Sometimes I actually really like that too. There's a part of me that gets a fix from that in itself. And it gets to the point where on some maps, you just accept that you're going to spawn and then instantly die like 3 times in a row. But when you get that lucky break and get to the BFG or rocket launcher or whatever it is, it's so satisfying. Yeah. To me, that's part of the fun of it in those crazy ass situations like that where you have a load of people on a tiny map. And it's just one of those things. It's really a matter of what way the wind is blowing that day. And sometimes it works out, the stars align, and you start a server with larger maps, and lo and behold, 10 or more people show up. And that's always cool because you have this big map and a bunch of people sort of exploring it and getting a reasonable frags per minute, while at the same time, it allows a lot of people to be engaged in the same server, yet no one's really overwhelmed. It's not going too fast for anyone. But it's just luck of the draw. And that aspect of deathmatch and multiplayer dooming, it really is just who happens to show up. And there's no, as far as I know, and for years of playing, that's just how it is. It just is one of those things that just happens,
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's like any kind of like way to make a map that accommodates. Like it seems weird. It seems weird because maps are designed, I guess, around a certain amount of people, and I guess you really can't broaden that range. You can't make a map that's a dual map, but also can hold 30 people on it too, and actually still be fun for both ways. I don't know. I wonder. I like to think that there's a best of both worlds in any scenario, and I'm really racking my brain to think of something here because I like to think that it's possible. Like one thing I was really focusing on when I was making UAC Ultra 2 is being accommodating for regular single player and co-op, but also Nightmare.
Yeah.
And
okay.
that was kind of a weird twist that I took on it, and it was very difficult to deal with, and it actually ended up making kind of shitty gameplay. But
look,
I do have some ideas on like how I can be more accommodating for all those things. But as far as making deathmatch appropriate or making maps that are appropriate for a very wide spectrum of or a wide range of players that you can have on at one time, I'm not really sure what you can do about it because all the spawn points are random.
Sure.
And
it's funny that the only truth be told, the WODs I mentioned a little bit ago, Don't Be a Bitch and Aeon Deathmatch, they are too slow in duel, like a one-on-one. But once you get about 3 or 4 players in there, excuse me, it's fun enough, it's active enough to be engaging and enjoyable. And yet, with 15 people in there, it's still not so fast paced that you can't grasp what's going on. And I don't even know, despite how long I've been mapping, I don't even know really how they pulled it off, but they managed to make some fantastic maps that are really good for a small handful and a large handful. And I think it's really like, it's funny to digress a bit here. It's funny to have been doing something for a long time and you have the way you like doing it and blah, blah, blah. And it's been that way for a long time. And other people who have been around for a while do something new, and they find this perfect little design approach that makes it great for both a small and a large crowd. And I mean, they're brilliant. Like I wouldn't even put my deathmatch maps in the same league as theirs. Like mine is something that anyone could realistically make who is somewhat competent at Doom mapping, but they have actually cracked into this. And yeah, pardon the ball washing, but these wads deserve it. You know what I mean? Like they cracked into this sort of design philosophy where they managed to make it the best of both worlds. And I can't even really. I'm not the best at quantifying this kind of thing for Doom mapping, but they really did strike that balance. I mean, I think Decay was one of the people who worked on it. Rust King, Grimoire. There's a few others. And I think that it would be worthwhile to actually have them in a thread on Doomworld or Zandronum or wherever discuss how they approached mapping. I would love to read that because what they did with those wads was really good in my opinion. Because, like you said, it managed to find that balance of being good for a small crowd and a larger crowd. I mean, I think it's one of those. I think perfection will be impossible to reach, but they gave it a good go at making it great for both sides. You know,
that's pretty cool. Do you think there's like any lack of like deathmatch maps that, or like maybe there's like a niche that's not being filled in the multiplayer forum or anything like? It doesn't seem like there's a lot of projects in the making, and it doesn't seem like there's very many people interested in making them. Do you think that there's kind of like room for improvement there? Like, do you think that, I don't know, like maybe, I mean, 32 and 24 is always a hit, but maybe there needs to be more like new project ideas being pitched. I don't know.
It's one of those things that's really tough for me because like the custom title implies, I am the loudest old school lecturer. So for me, everything in terms of design goes around this, like, old school deathmatch type thing or old school cooperative type thing. And I think that there's other people out there who maybe have a broader vision who would, despite my time in the community and my time playing, they might actually be more qualified to try and work that out because I like something that has faded slightly in popularity over the course of, 15 years, but there's always going to be, with luck, it still feels like there's always going to be people who like that. Like just last night, I was deathmatching with a buddy of mine whose screen name is Mad Dog. It's like, I feel like no matter how many years go by, I'll always be able to get like a 2 to 4 man deathmatch going on the old school stuff. But in terms of what will generate interest for new map sets and for new approaches, I mean, I'm honestly at a loss, and it's I really haven't spent enough time thinking about it because it's not something that But I think that there is something there. Like I think there is something that could be done to promote more multiplayer projects and to get people interested. I'm just not really sure what it is. I come from this perspective of like an old doomer. So what the crowd wants today is not something that I am that well attuned to. I'm pretty good at keeping people in line and keeping the forms under control. Like, I mean, it hasn't been needed at all for like a year now. But, a few players would come in and talk shit and just try to make the place suck. And I'm good at being like, all right, you're fucking gone. You know what I mean? But in terms of actually generating interest in multiplayer projects and stuff, I would love to hear someone else, maybe the guys who made Aeon Deathmatch and stuff, or maybe even just some of the other guys on Zandronum. Zandronum's the main port for multiplayer. And sometimes I see servers just booming there. I mean, like some days I go and there's like 15 people online, but sometimes I go and there's like 200 plus people online, and one server's got like 30 fucking people in it. And I can join it and see, ooh, these maps look nice and blah, blah, blah. But I really can't identify what it is that has that big draw. And I'd like to hear other people who are more involved in the multiplayer community speak up, and talk about this topic more. Because I think it would be interesting. I think that there is room for expansion in the realm of multiplayer Doom. Absolutely. In terms of projects and just overall participation. But personally, I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Well, community projects like spring up. Like, I mean, they're a dime a dozen. They come up like almost once a week, and they're always single player oriented, which is kind of strange to me. Every time, and it's weird because I would think that a deathmatch community project would require a lot less like playtesting. Well, maybe not a lot less playtesting because it requires a different type of playtesting. But
I will put it this way: playtesting a single player map can take like 30 fucking minutes just for one person to play the map and sort of like properly explore it. Whereas
yeah,
deathmatch playtesting for a map can be like 5 to 10 minutes, and that alone already means like you got to spend a lot less time before you can work out what works and what doesn't in the map's design. I think a lot of it as well. I mean, I could be totally dead wrong here. In fact, I hope I'm dead wrong. But I think a lot of people are afraid to lose or afraid to do poorly in a death match, and that's unfortunate to me. But I think that is a contributing factor. People don't want to join a server and get 5 frags when the winner got 40.
yeah, it is
And
kind of embarrassing, isn't it?
I think it's unfortunate that there'd be they're afraid of losing or looking like a crappy doomer, and it's like I wish people would drop that. If that is what's happening, I hope that they drop it because no one whose opinion is worth anything is going to judge you as a doomer or whatever because you're not that great at deathmatch. If anything, like for me, when I first started playing when I was a kid in deathmatch, seeing how much I sucked was like, oh fuck, I can get way better at this. I can become a great player. And that encouraged me to keep going, and it would be nice if more people would end up doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird thing because single player and deathmatch are two completely different games. Like
Pretty much.
I found that some speedrunners, like I've heard, and when I was talking to Ralphus once, I think, and he told me that he's like the skills that are great for speedrunning and like you would think these people are like really good at everything and involving Doom, but they're actually like they don't translate very well to deathmatch at all. Like with the exception of maybe capture the flag. That does involve a little bit of speedrunning tactics
Sure.
and skills and stuff. But it's a really different environment because when you're dealing with monsters, you're dealing with a bunch of like very HP health dense monsters that move slow, and you're just kind of like tactically chipping away, as opposed to when you're fighting in deathmatch, you're fighting a bunch of low health targets that are fucking fast as shit.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a completely different game. So like if you're even if you're good at killing monsters, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be good at deathmatch, and that should be understood among everybody. It doesn't really mean that you're a shitty player. You just don't have experience
Right.
with deathmatch, and that's fine.
The predictability is a lot lower in deathmatch, and
Yes.
for me, that's what makes it fun. But maybe some people, let's say the people who don't really give a shit if they lose, they just more enjoy the repetitive, like, if I do this one map over and over, I can get great at it. I can be the world's best at it. And I understand that. I find speedrunning, I'm not a great speedrunner. I'm mediocre at it. But I definitely see the appeal. But I have, in addition to enjoying that, I also enjoy going into a deathmatch and not knowing if I'm going to get creamed or if I'm going to destroy everyone else or somewhere in the middle. And, having an intelligent opponent that can change it up on you is part of what makes deathmatch awesome to me personally. But some people don't like that approach in the gaming, and that's fine. Like, I just wish that more people would give it a shot and then in doing so not be deterred if they don't do so well, because really a few death matches in, you'll get the hang of it, and if you've got those basic Doom skills, you'll start becoming a competent death matcher. I think a lot of people just don't let themselves get to that point. They lose a few rounds and say, fuck this, it's too fast, and quit. And to me, that's what's unfortunate. And I think that also plays into what one of the people who responded, I think it was Decay actually in that thread, who responded and said, it's a change in the players. And I think there's instant gratification seems to be more and more the thing that people want when playing a game. And, if you don't get the instant gratification of winning in your first few rounds, you say, well, fuck this. But I think in the past, especially when like deathmatch was the number one thing you'd see on Doom servers, like there would only be, a side note, multiplayer Doom is like expanded. Like in the old days at peak, there'd be like 50 people online globally. And like now it's like there's 200, you know what I mean? So to me, it's like it's actually gotten bigger, or at least it definitely hasn't shrunk. But a draw for deathmatch specifically and duels specifically is smaller. I won't deny that. It's still there. It's not dead. The rumors that it's dead are just rumors, but it is smaller. And I think that because if you're not great at deathmatch already, or at least competent, like I wouldn't say I'm great, but I'm okay at it because I've been doing it so long. I think a lot of people go in, they lose a few times, they don't get that instant gratification, and they just write it off as a game mode that they find no interest in. That to me is a very unfortunate thing, you know.
Yeah, I'd like to see more people getting into Odom X Saturday Nitro. I don't get to play very often because I'm usually not home, but I wish I could, because I didn't, even though I was losing, I was still having a fun time, because I was like, it was like a party. I was like surrounded by a bunch of people, and it was just like a big chaotic mess, and it was just a lot of fun. Even though everybody was dying, it was fun to like just kind of like be around all these people. Even if they're better or worse than you, it didn't really matter. It was just fun to.
Just cool to see that many Doomers in one spot having a go, you know.
Yeah, just going around blowing each other up.
Yeah, I love that element of it. Definitely, I definitely see that. Like I've because of, like I say, partially because of pain, but also partially because I'm not the best deathmatcher. You know, I find myself in the middle on the end of a round all the time. But it's just part of it's just like, this is awesome. You know, I'm playing fast-paced, unpredictable Doom with opponents that can outthink me or surprise me with their strategies.
Yeah.
I mean, whether or not I win or lose, just seeing that many Doomers in one place and stuff, that in itself is more than enough fun to keep me coming back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's cool, man. Do you want to wrap this up? Did you have any like final words or anything that you want to?
I think we've covered a pretty fucking good range of topics. I was just about to say I've got to go in a few minutes, so the timing works perfectly. But this has been an excellent conversation. Even if no one tunes in, it's been a fucking great conversation. I've loved it.
Dude, I love this. I had a great time talking to you. It
was awesome, man. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You're welcome to be on the show again if you'd like to. We could probably set up another show later on when we can think of more stuff to say.
Sure, man.
Is there I forgot to ask you about this before we started, but it's in case I know people can find you on Doomworld. Do you have any other like avenues that people could contact you if they want to find out, if they want to like I don't know, message you or something? I know you have like a YouTube channel or something, right?
Well, I'll do a little bit of shilling here for a minute, and I say shilling. There's no money involved, but you know, doomshack.org. There's an IRC chat there, which I can be reached at if I'm on my computer and I'm actually there. I'm not just texting on my phone at work. I'll be in the Doomshack chat. That's doomshack.org, and I have the YouTube channel. Of course, my actual username is faceplant92. Although if you search Doomkid, I'll be pretty much the first result. I've got about 1,800 subscribers for my generic fucking ridiculous content. Yeah, I mean, look, I would say Doomworld, YouTube, and Doomshack are the three main things. I'm on all the Doom shit. You know, you can find me everywhere, but those are the three that you can reliably find me at.
All right, cool, man. All right, thanks for being on the show, man, and keep being awesome.
Thanks for having me.
All right, see you, everybody.
Ciao.